14th, 2022, 6:30 p.m. Council chambers. Call to order. Patrick.
Here.
Morgan.
Here.
Dolly.
Here.
Renslow.
Here.
Kava. Here. Agenda approval, consent agenda approval of minutes 2022, approval of financial statements as of 2/28/2022, approval of bills presented, approval of liquor license, Ruby's Unlimited LLC, Ruby's Pub and Grill, Kinder, promotion speed, and then I want to move 17, 9, and 10 after 4 and 5.
So moved.
Moved by Renfro, second.
I'll second.
Second by Kirkpatrick. How do you vote? Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yeah.
Dolly?
Yes.
Renslow?
Yes.
Kava?
Yes.
Okay, for 2022 through 2023 city proposed budget. At this time, I open the public hearing. Did you receive anything, Denise? Any comments, concerns from the general public? Close the public hearing. B, resolution number 2210C, adopting the city budget. Need a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Renslow,
I'll second.
second by Kirkpatrick. How do you vote? Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Renslow?
Yes.
Kava?
Yes.
Okay. 5, general obligation. Principal amount to not exceed 250,000. This time I open the public hearing. Did you receive anything, Ash? Comments, concerns from the general public? Yes, Lisa?
We just can't hear you.
You can't hear it?
No.
Are these on? Can you hear me now, Lisa?
If you're talking to the mic. or-
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Close the public hearing then. B, resolution number 2211C.
I'll move to make a motion.
Moved by Kirkpatrick,
I'll second it.
second by Renslow. How do you vote? Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Renslow?
Yes.
Kava?
Yes.
Okay. 17, Economic Development Director, Matt Funk.
All right. Okay. Start off with, on this here, we got the Quick Star Convenience Stores is interested in our lot southeast of the interstate and Stuart Road or Division Street. And it's just an announcement at this moment, but they want to have a meeting with Seed, that is who owns the land, and city officials. And we've got that scheduled for the 29th now, and we got Seed members to narrow down the date. So that'll be the 29th of March. I had an email with Quickstar representative today. They are looking to employ 45 to 55 employees. So any questions on that at the moment?
Do they consider it to be, is it a 24-hour business or it probably has to for a truck stop or something?
So, I mean, we already got cases and come and go that way.
Yeah.
Going across the road from there.
I'd like to say thank you, and if you need anything, I'd be willing to help out.
Yes, so that may be necessary if that comes up. Then Phase 4 Housing Addition. I am asking for I am asking for city council approval to proceed with all the planning with Stuart and Kim and financing with Chip Schultz for planning of phase 4. No, I'm not asking for permission to go purchase. I'm just asking to be able to perform all the planning necessary with Chip and Ford to get that eventually move along and eventually bring a plan to the council.
Right.
We will put it in form of, right now, all we have is an estimate from the engineer, giving us about $5 to $6 million. I will be sitting with Forrest, with Chip, trying to study our city financial condition. So in the meantime, what you're asking us to, how to proceed with that. That we sit with the financial advisor and see our city financial condition to see if we can afford that high dollar for the project.
Ash, can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Forrest, as part of this, we've had a lot of hesitation about phase 4 because of the sewer and the condition of the city's sewer lines. Do we have a fix to that has been discussed with Jim, so that way we're all on the same page about getting those lines? Is it the lining that we need to do? Am I correct?
Yes.
You missed it. Glad to see him. Yes, Jim and I discussed it this morning. And if we line the sanitary sewers on the south side of the city, south of Front Street, that flow into the Harlan Street sewer, where everything comes together, about $700,000, came up about $700,000 to line those sewers, and those repairs or that lining is included in the dollar amounts that I've been including in the cost of the project.
And you're good with all of this? Okay.
It's a start.
How big is that?
Good question.
Most of it's 8.
The sewer on Harlan is a 12.
Yeah.
But the whole south side flows into that. Most of the south side flows into that sewer going north.
And then are we gonna need another lift station out there?
That's my next question.
No, but we'll need to upgrade the lift station that is out there.
And that's built in
That's
also
also-
to the cost?
Yes.
And just remember this, if that quick start goes in South Interstate, I'll be dumping onto that too.
Are we gonna have capacity for all that?
If we seal out the groundwater, yes.
Okay.
And
If we get our
that,
sewers fixed.
that's what I mean by getting all these things together and sitting and seeing the city financial condition. And then come back to you with some kind of hard number.
I just want to
Right
make sure
now
the
is-
sewer's good, because that was the biggest thing for me to move forward with phase 4 is to make sure that we're taking care of our sewers in town, so we have the capacity and we're not backtracking once we're done.
What are the fees associated with if we move on with what you're asking for approval for? What are the fees associated with that, or are there?
With Mainstream Cam?
Yep.
We would not have any costs with this until we get into actually starting to design something. And then I would come to the council with an agreement for your approval before we move forward with anything. So discussions at this level, no charge.
So as Chip, our city financial
Likewise.
advisor, so we really have the benefit of having the city engineer and the financial advisor working with us on that preliminary study, in the meantime, until we get the council fully aware of how much it's gonna cost. We will come back with all these agreements with the engineering and the finance and all this. So right now, all we need from the council, just allow us to proceed. Go ahead.
So you were saying like the cost is anywhere from 5 to 6 million, right? Kind of, that's with the sewer, right?
That's if we did all, with the sewer and the lift station, we did all of the subdivision. One of the things we're looking at is maybe just doing it in phases. When we did Wombold Phase 1, which is the street with the circle street loop, we did that in 2 parts. We took bids on one part of it and an alternate bid on the other. Bids came in good enough, we did it all. I don't know what the bidding environment's gonna be like a year from now, but So we may look at something like that as part of it, is to do it in pieces or design it all, but bid a base part and alternates kind of thing, give us flexibility.
Yeah, that kind of sounds pretty good to me, but, you know, we are always gonna keep the sewer, you know, right up there as a top priority.
Yes,
Yeah,
the
getting
sewer
that, so-
rehabilitation, that work that needs to be done, and the upgrade to the lift station, all that would be,
In
In-
however you did it.
However you did it.
Together, if you did A, B, A, B, C,
Yeah.
whatever it is,
yeah,
that would
that's,
be,
that'd
the first
be
thing.
A,
okay, all right.
always an A, yes.
I'll make the motion to move forward.
We will proceed with the preliminary study with the engineer and the financial advisor.
Got it.
And get back to you with some kind of outlook. Moved by
Moved by Renzo, for a second.
I'll second it.
Second by Kirkpatrick. How do you vote? Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yeah.
Dolly?
Yeah.
Renzo?
Yes,
Kavah?
Yes.
Thank you, Forrest, for that.
thank you.
So my economic development report is in your packet. Do any of you have any questions on any of that?
I don't.
All right, it's gonna be a long night, so I thought I would.
six.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. 9, cemetery mowing and spraying bids. Everybody should have a copy of what the committee has recommended. And then you have the bid sheet of the spraying and the mowing bids.
Ash did all the bids come to the city Stuart Hall.
Yeah, I received 2 bids before the deadline, and Mike Johnson handed to me 3 bids at 11:40.
They wasn't here, they wasn't in your hands.
He gave me 3 bids at 11:45. The deadline was 12. And we have a bid tabulation that we put it in the package that shows how every bid goes. You have a lowest bid and highest bid and median bid. Then you have the recommendation from the cemetery committee. Now, the final decision lie in the city council. On which direction to go.
And Gomez was thrown out because he didn't show proof of liability insurance.
And what's Jim Henderson's recommendation?
Jim Henderson was the lowest bid recommendation.
And how does the city normally proceed?
The council makes the final decision.
But normally, in the past, how does the city normally proceed?
You proceed with the lowest bid unless you have good reason for accepting any of the bids. That's how we operate. So now the council.
Do we need him to read that? Has everybody read it?
Yeah, I don't think we need it. I don't have any.
Unless they have something else to, do you have something else to say?
Okay, you read it.
I would just move that we accept the recommendation put forth by the cemetery committee. Awarding it to, what is it, Countryside Lawn Solutions?
Well, I guess I have a couple questions. So the Countryside, did he fulfill his contract last year?
Yes, he did.
The 2-year contract that he bid?
What's that?
The 2-year contract that he bid in his letter, did he fulfill the
He
contract?
didn't have a contract with the city. Remember, we established that. He didn't have a signed contract with
But he
us.
submitted a letter, in his bid letter, he
Yes.
submitted it for 2 years.
Yes.
And he chose not to continue.
He wanted that rebid.
So that's why we're here, is because he wanted it to be rebid.
He
and
wanted
He
it to
did
be
not fulfill it.
rebid because of the conflict between the mowing and the spraying. You know, we hired him to beautify the cemetery, which, you know, to be honest with you, he did a fabulous job. I know Alberta had mentioned today, she had several community members reach out to her to make that point that Corey did a great job. he did a great job all the way to the end. Even my 98-year-old grandmother mentioned that. But the thing is at the end, there was a difference in opinions as far as when post-merchant chemical was to be sprayed. If it was to be sprayed, if you Google search it, it says to spray that, wait 5 to 7 days, then roll the application. So that's what the big thing was, but there was no.
We had to get the city
We
attorney
talked about
involved,
that.
correct?
We got that talked about in our September meeting. I think.
But so everybody knows, the city attorney got involved at that point, correct?
She only got involved because Corey had a hold harmless agreement.
I'm not allowed to ask questions.
He,
Dick?
No, you can ask questions, you just can't vote.
Well,
It
Correct.
depends on.
I understand that, but that's,
Mr. Mayor, and I'm not gonna shut you down, okay, just really.
can we mute him, please?
The
well, he's part of
The thing is, I just would caution everybody, because we did receive a bid from the spouse of a council member, is to just try to avoid getting the perception of any conflict of interest, even in discussing the matter. I'm not saying you can't discuss it, I'm just cautioning.
Right, and I'm just making
And you're fine,
points
you're fine.
from last year
You're fine.
about the gentleman that we're
What
recommending,
was that?
and that we spent a bunch of extra money on attorneys.
We
I'm
did,
just making this clear.
we did do that, but running a business and being hired to beautify the cemetery, if I wasn't gonna do that and it was going against my policy, I think we discussed this in our cemetery committee meeting too. I would want to anonymous if that went against my.
Which is fine, I'm
Yeah,
just
I mean,
clarifying that
I-
we spent extra money on an attorney to make sure that
Yeah.
the same gentleman,
I have to do that a lot with monuments, if it's something that I'm resetting, I have to have a hold harmless because it's not something that I originally done. But if I damage it in the meantime, then I'm liable for that.
Right. So here's my last question. In your letter, well, Ash said that we go with low bid unless there's reasonable reasons why we don't go with low bid. Can you tell me why the cemetery committee is not following the direction that the city normally goes?
Well, I think that's something that it's not always followed. And the Iowa League as a city says that if we think that this gentleman is comfortable with doing this job, which he did an excellent job last year, it doesn't really say that's a very gray area that we have to take the lowest bid, because that's not always what happens. I mean, it's like the fire siren. I don't think you guys with the fire department took the lowest bid on that.
I have no idea. I was not involved with that.
We were $6,000 over the lowest bid is what we accepted.
So, see, that's not always necessarily the case. We had a gentleman that I can't speak beyond these two. I can only speak for myself. As far as the mowing last year, that was the only year that we have not had multiple calls. It was a fantastic year all the way around. Everybody was happy. The community members were happy. The quality work that he provided, he did an excellent job. He was out there mowing the stones off, even though he wasn't required to do so. Because I had visited with him about that before, because he was blowing my wife's off. And so I stopped and I said, "Hey, you're moving my stuff around." He goes, "No, I'm putting it back." I moved it, got things done, and then I moved it back, because I was ready to jump his case at that point, because my stuff was moved. Of course, you were too. I mean,
So we heard you talk about this guy that does an amazing job. But I still haven't heard you answer Christine's question. Why did you guys pick the lowest bid? I mean, there's a $4,000 difference. So I guess I want to know what you guys are thinking, why you didn't pick the lowest bid.
Corey, I was the one that made the motion that we go with the other four.
Okay.
And the reason I did that was because of the community reaching out to me to tell me that they were very satisfied with the way it was done. Another reason I was told that he only has one lawnmower and one weed eater. He has another lawnmower ordered, but the way everything, that's no sign he's gonna get it before the 1st of September.
And with no disrespect, that's not our business.
I realize that
If you
too.
can come up with a mower.
That's okay, but what I'm saying is, this fellow already has done it, he knows what it's all about.
I understand.
And he is an expert in the field.
Hey guys,
He does.
it sounds like there's a motion out there to receive carries through, but you
don't think anybody seconded it.
Yeah, is there a second to that motion? Moved by Cobal,
Okay, moved and seconded then. So how do you vote? Kirkpatrick,
No,
Morgan,
Yes.
Dolly?
Can I ask a question first?
Yes.
So I'm really torn on this. Obviously, yes, there's a $4,000 or $5,000 difference. I very much respect the idea of having a committee, and I respect all the people on the committee. It's quite a bit of money, and I understand that the guy did a good job. I'm torn. Who's to say the next guy won't do a good job as well? We don't know. So I'm very much torn on this. And
No disrespect to Alberta, but I have to say, I went down to Clyde Power and Equipment, and they got 25 mowers sitting there
Well, that's.
Saturday, where you can pick up a mower anywhere.
Has anybody reached out to ask any questions to I mean, I know it is my spouse, but have you guys reached out to talk to Josh about how many mowers he has or what, because the experience wasn't asked for. Nobody asked for experience.
Nobody asked for experience. What we were basically.
And Josh mowed for the city for 7 years. And Jim and Ash can attest that park looked great
Now we're
And there was-
getting into a conflict of interest.
and there wasn't any,
Jim,
I'm not
We are-
voting,
We are
obviously.
promoting, we're allowing the council member to promote their
I'm not
husband's
promoting
business.
anything. I'm not
Yes.
voting.
I want to hear what Jim Anderson has to say a second.
That was just my comment was gonna be that it's not like the other individual doesn't have any experience. He did work for us and mowed for us for 7 years
Okay,
and has other mowing contracts.
okay, so,
And keep in mind, Councilman Deloy, is that, when we took the recommendation of one person to spend $6,000 more on the storm center, and here we have the recommendation of a committee based on experience with somebody, and we did the same thing with the storm center. We base it on experience with that company.
issue is
I think they're working together.
there's no reason, if we don't go with the committee, if we're throwing this to the side, there's no reason for a committee. So this is where I'm really torn, because we have a committee to make these recommendations. So do we stick with the recommendation that the committee makes and move forward? Otherwise, you know what I'm saying, like, why do we have a committee?
Yeah.
So if we're not gonna go with recommendations, then we shouldn't have a committee. So I guess I'm one way or totally the other. So that's where I'm kind of torn right here. Either we're gonna go with the lowest bid like we've gone with, and that's what we're doing, or we're gonna go with the recommendation. Sure. You understand? Mary, do you have a opinion on that? Alberta kind of spoke why she's voted how she did, or made the motion.
I just voted for him just based on the work that he did last year and the response that we got from the community on how it looked.
so
And I will say-
questions before Dave does his vote.
And he has, like I said, he mows the city of Dexter. That's a combined bid, mowing and spraying. He mows, he does Joaquin, he does.
I'm sorry, can he mute himself? There's a lot of background noise.
He's part of the committee, so.
No, if he mutes himself on the other end or something, we won't hear his background noise.
Hey, Nick, can you mute your phone on the other end so that beeping's not coming through?
Can I what?
You should be able to mute your phone on that end so those beeps not come through.
Yeah, I can.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
I guess another thing would, we always win with the lowest bid. I see your point. I do.
I'm really torn in the middle. I think
I'm
that it's
just-
gonna come down, and
But
if
we really didn't bid this, did we, Corey? You bid it, I think, when you moved in 2008, because I think you were mowing when I first came back. And then I think you'd stepped down from there and John came up, but there was really no bids following that. So it went several years from 2008 to basically last year. So for all those years, it was unbid. It was it was given because of the quality of the work.
if we don't go with this recommendation. Because that's a spraying and mowing. Do we go, I mean, have we talked to the contractors that if we go a different way with a mowing bid or go with the lowest bid, do we go with the lowest bid? Are they willing to just spray? The lowest bid on the spraying side?
You know, I can't answer that for him, you know, so I don't really know. I would doubt that he would, but I can't answer that question.
Because the lowest bid on the spraying side would be countryside. So if he didn't get the mowing bid, would he do the spraying
I
bid?
don't think so.
I don't believe so.
No?
And
Yeah.
there
He
really is.
had stated earlier that he would not spray, or would not mow if he didn't spray.
Yeah.
But that's not how it was bid. It was bid mowing and spraying, separate bids.
And Jim said, worst case scenario, if we can't find somebody to spray, the city staff could do it. They've got the equipment.
Well, the next one in line would be John,
Yeah.
and he's $184 more,
Right.
so, I mean, we could always go with the second person on that too. I'm about done with that, Mike.
Yeah, that's.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be rude, but
And we're still under budget if we go with this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or not.
Our budget's 35,000 for mowing and spraying. So we'd still be under budget at that time.
Yeah, by 1,000, but that doesn't allow you guys anything else, correct?
Do you have any insight on this?
Well, it's
I mean,
really,
you've seen the numbers in the past and stuff.
it's really now council position, I hate to say that, because normally we go with the lowest bid, you have to have a good reason to go with a higher bid. And they gave you the reasons, you need to decide, it's enough reason for you to go with a higher bid or not. You asked for the recommendation of street, public work, he gave it to you. You have all the information there on the
And this,
table.
whoever takes the job reports to Jim,
Yes.
is that right?
And the cemetery committee.
And Senator.
But I take care of the day-to-day stuff, yeah.
And you're not on board with the recommendation?
No.
That doesn't help the decision at all.
Can I
Yeah.
chime in there? In my viewpoint, the reason that you have chose to deny the lower price bidder is not sufficient enough to deny them.
discrimination.
So how did you guys do that with the fire whistle line?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we would have to go back
We would
and
have to go back to that.
reevaluate our.
I wasn't a part of
on that
So
side.
let's stay on the line, please.
yeah.
But if we're gonna bring that up,
Um,
And there's no, in the contract, there's no, I mean, with gas prices, everything's going up.
Nope.
There's no way that, since we'd have very little margin for the budget, there's no way to go about, I mean, whatever's contracted is,
That's why you
For 2
solicit
years.
bids.
that's,
it cannot go above that.
That's
Yeah.
correct. That's why you solicit bids and it's a 2-year bid.
and in the past, unfortunately, we did vote to give somebody more money after they came up and they did a 5-year contract, I think it was. Can't remember.
And what
They came
happens
back-
with if there's a breach of contract?
It goes to legal.
On another note, they didn't bring it to city hall either.
That
That
doesn't.
doesn't matter.
that
Yes, it
doesn't-
does.
Yes, it does.
I mean, if we can't follow simple
Where does
direction,
it, let me see,
No.
where does it say city hall?
it does.
No,
So
it
there's-
says bids must be
No, that's
received
your
by
address.
12 p.m.
Yeah,
on that.
City
It
of
doesn't-
Stuart.
It doesn't say bring it to city hall.
It says
Oh,
get it
come
to
on
city.
now.
Well,
So
I could
stop
say
it.
the same thing, come on, that's a petty argument.
No, that's not petty. I mean, we
It
can't even
is.
follow direction. The other two people brought the bids to city hall.
Whereas that's never been an issue in the past. Last year I brought 2 bids up and they were accepted.
Okay, well, I wasn't here.
No, I know, I understand that, but I wrote the article too. And that's not what that's within.
I know, I know. It's terrible.
3 months on,
And you got a committee, I've never seen another committee or commission have to go through this and fight a recommendation.
Because we don't have any other committees that are formed.
Well, we have a planning and zoning commission, they write down their recommendations on stuff and we generally accept that.
If this was closer, $1,500,
I know
we're
that's,
talking $4,000 or whatever it is. That's, we're kind of stretching out there.
It's not even in business, it's not even out of that 10%, 15% scope.
Yeah.
But
But they kicked him.
I have a question. I'd like to know who's going to handle the complaints.
We did it in the past, you know?
that we did.
Okay.
The complaints, that
From the
was one of,
cemetery?
that was one of the reasons we were inactive, because of all the damage and stuff that had been done in the cemetery years previous. We were inactive, if you remember, to kind of combat that.
and we don't know, we won't know if there's complaints either way.
Because they're formally, we can't accept any complaints unless they're written on there. You know, they gotta be written. And it was,
I vote yes. I hope I don't,
Oh my God.
I hope I don't regret that.
Okay,
Whoa, what'd you say, Mr. Henderson? You know you will?
You didn't even
finish his vote
last year.
Well, it's-
Thanks. We need to have a visit after this meeting.
Sorry. Let's keep
That's-
going.
That's a serious
The
one
last
right
one.
there.
Let's keep going.
I'm sorry, but that is no more harassment than Mr. Askren making comments after the last meeting.
okay, let's move on. Done if not.
Did you even finish your votes?
No, we didn't.
So we
So
had,
how do you vote?
who was the last one?
Moved by Calder, second by Morrison.
Renzo,
Voted
vote, Laura
yes.
didn't vote.
So
No.
you,
No.
did you get mine?
No.
That's why I said
Did you
he,
get mine? Yeah.
I said
thought
he
that was the
didn't
last one.
finish.
So yes.
Yeah, you haven't voted.
Yes. I voted.
Yes.
I just didn't hear everything.
Okay.
I didn't know where we were. I don't think they did.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can sale of city.
Okay, you got the bids tabulation.
And, we have a 12-inch bucket, backhoe bucket. I did.
In this situation, it's also real gun. You need to accept the highest bid.
Oh, we have to accept the highest bid?
Well, they have the option to refuse bids if they're not hired.
Interesting.
And Jim recommended.
He
It's the highest
He was fine with all
Yeah,
this.
with all. Okay, so.
Oh, these are his recommendations.
No,
he's
This is the
recommending,
bids.
these are the bids.
He's
He's recommending the
originally-
highest one.
You recommend to bid the highest price.
So 12-inch backhoe bucket, 175 is the highest. Bennett backhoe repair. 36-inch backhoe bucket, Bennett backhoe repair, $175. 2006 Ford 250, Francis Bloomquist, highest bid, $9,656. 1980 wing truck, Vince McGinnis, highest bid, $1,250. 1998 Ford F800, John Fowler, highest bid, $10,726.80. We need a motion to approve the highest bid.
I'm gonna do it. Unless somebody else did.
Moved by
I'll second.
Kavah, second by Dolly. How do you vote? Mr. Patrick,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes.
Renslow,
Yep.
Kavah.
Yes.
Okay, now back to 6. City property liability insurance, United Risk. Thank you.
All right, well, I distribute it out. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to present to council tonight. I was just back here on Thursday for the utilities meeting. I was told respectfully that the agenda was full tonight, so to move it along maybe quicker than I did the other evening. So there's two packets. The first one that has the City of Stuart title on there. That is just going to be a little bit of information about our team, our process, and the new affiliation that United Risk Services has with First Main Street Insurance. So what I want to do is start there and just provide maybe some clarity and answer any questions. And then we can move on to the numbers with where the renewal is coming in for EMC insurance this year for April 1st. So just for a little bit of clarity, First Main Street Insurance, our organization partners with independent insurance agencies throughout the state of Iowa. United Risk Services is one of our newest additions to our family and our team. The most important thing for the City of Stuart, I think, from our standpoint to convey, is our value proposition for public entities. And that's historically cities, counties, school districts, municipality partnership organizations. They've had to make one of two decisions. They've either worked with a local agent, and in doing so, they felt really good about the opportunity to generate revenue back to the local agency. They worked with somebody who had a pulse on what's going on in the community, and in doing so, they might have, made a sacrifice when it comes to insurance market access, to expertise in that particular space, or to some loss control resources that might be available. The other option that cities have had was to go outside of their city and to work with a agency, maybe out of a larger metropolitan area that had the insurance market access, that had the expertise in this space, but in doing so, they weren't able to work with a local agency who really had a pulse on the community. We believe our value proposition, we give a city like the City of Stuart the ability to do both. So United Risk Services will still be the servicing agent for the City of Stuart. We have a physical location here in the community. We have two team members that work full-time in Stuart. Janice Durham, who is joining me this evening, and Diane Hawley are both members of our team. So we feel really good about their abilities, one, to work within the insurance business, but also we know that they are community active folks. We're very lucky to have them on our team. They keep us apprised of what's going on here locally, which we feel really good about. The reason that I am here is I am the lead advisor within our public entity specialty group. So where I spend a majority of my time is working with cities, counties, school districts across the state of Iowa. So what that allows is I know the EMC program really well, which the city is currently with. We also do represent ICAP, which is a assurance pool that cities utilize. We know at some point the city was considering the option of looking at the ICAP program, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. But I just want to give you some background or context into our team, United Risk Services, recent changes. Day-to-day business for the city won't change outside of myself being the agent. We'll continue to work with Janice and Diane at the agency. So I do want to pause there just to answer any questions that council would have before going into the specifics of this year's renewal. Any questions from council? Okay. And we have met with Ash just to go through all this information and maybe go a little bit deeper on some of the specifics there. So he can answer any questions specific to our working relationship and dynamics. So this is a high-level overview of the renewal with EMC this year. So when I present these, we can go very specific as far as rating basis changes, rate changes, premium. What I will likely do, if you're okay with it, just to speed along the process, is once again hit high-level overview, tell you what the pricing changes are this year, and then answer any questions that we have at the end of the presentation. So this year, you're gonna see on the left, this is where the renewal came in last year. So where the city's insurance policies renewed in 2021, right side is where they are coming in at for 2022. So general liability coverage, that's the first line item. We're seeing a 3.6% increase year over year for that, without much rating basis change. So the city's exposure is very similar. That's purely a rate increase. That is actually coming in lower than the industry standard, and part of that is the loss ratio for the city looks really good over a 5-year period at 19.1%. Next line item is commercial auto. You're going to see that this year there's a 16.92% increase on that line item. There's two things that are driving that. One, the commercial auto marketplace is seeing rate increases based on losses that they're seeing throughout the industry. You can imagine things like distracted driving and jury awards that are a little bit more nuclear or high dollar value than what we've seen historically, are just driving pure rate increases. The other thing is the city has purchased several vehicles over the last policy period that are of higher value. So the pure values that EMC is insuring are higher, which is part of that increase. It is worth noting that this proposal assumes that we will have the sale of 3 vehicles, which I've worked with both Ash and Mike on. I believe one, if not more of those, was approved tonight for sale. But the renewal pricing assumes that those 3 vehicles will be sold between now and April 1st. If they're not, they will remain on the policy, and that will generate additional premium. So just wanted to bring that to the forefront there.
Does it matter now, you know which vehicles, because that's.
I do. I don't. I probably have the information. I know I have it in my email. Of the 21 vehicles, or there's 24 on the current policy, 3 of them are in the process of being sold. The city had acquired vehicles to replace those. So Ash, Mike, you can probably speak as well to this, that they're in the process of being sold.
Yeah, they just took the bids tonight for it.
Oh, is that?
That's what I
Yeah,
Okay,
those-
yeah.
okay, I didn't know if it was something else.
Yeah, those are,
Okay.
So once that sale does close, we will remove those from the policy. So this pricing would reflect all 3 of those being on the policy. The next line item is linebacker coverage. So this is the policy that will defend employees or board members in the event that they are sued based on the duties or course of their action as public officials. So things like harassment, sexual harassment, discrimination, things of that nature. That is where this policy would respond to defend Stuart. You're going to see a 0% loss ratio on this policy. It is a 24.5% renewal. Part of that is we're just seeing a lot more claims frequency in the space over the last several years. You can imagine things like the Me Too movement just bringing light on some of the things that historically happened and weren't reported. So we're just seeing a lot more claims activity. That's part of the driver. There was a reported claim last year, and yet the settlement amount was less than the retention that the city takes on the 2,000. So there was activity on the policy last year, but there was not payment outside of the city's indemnity on that claim. So you're seeing a 24.5% increase there. I believe that's the highest total that we're seeing on the line at the renewal. Next is the commercial umbrella. The city carries a $1 million umbrella that sits over the general liability, commercial auto, and linebacker coverages. You're seeing an 8.27% increase there. A lot of what drives the rate increases are actually the underlying policies and how those are priced. So that's a majority of the driver there. One of the things that we would recommend is that council always considers looking at increased umbrella limits. We are seeing a lot higher claims, not just frequency, but severity when general liability, auto liability claims are paid out. There's a $2 million underlying limit. If that is exhausted at any claim, the umbrella would kick in and make payment beyond that. So it's just always wise for cities to consider looking at additional coverage. Per layer, you're probably looking right around $600 per to add to this policy. So if you wanted to have a $5 million limit per occurrence, it would be about an additional $1,200 for the city to pay in premiums to make sure that for any one event, the city would have $5 million of coverage.
before they were paying out of pocket. So just something to consider. I can certainly speak to Mike and Ash more about that, maybe give them some claims information, but I want to make sure that it's talked about tonight, just in case the council had any questions. If you go to the next page, you're gonna look at commercial property. We're seeing a 7.92% increase there, which is actually really, really solid. Most commercial property rates are increasing much more significantly, but the city has had a 0% loss ratio over the previous 5 years. So what's driving a lot of that increase, you're gonna see 7.92% year over year, but the blanket limit of insurance increased by 5.78%. So there's technically more limit available that the company is going to indemnify the city with. The reason that's important, especially in today's market, is labor costs are increasing, material prices are already extremely high. So we wouldn't recommend any city consider reducing limits of coverage. These are on inflation adjustments. So the 7.92% increase is really driven primarily by the limit increase of 5.7%. Commercial law enforcement, it's essentially a flat deductible. The city saved $2 year over year, so that one went down. Inland marine is essentially equipment that floats, which means that it doesn't sit in one location. It can go from site to site. One of the benefits or advantages of EMC is they give you a blanket limit for property off premise. So what we've done historically is we have scheduled business personal property at locations, knowing you have that built in 250,000 of property off premise that's built into the property form. So the cost that you're paying here is very minimal relative to the coverage that you're getting. You'll see all the sub-limits listed down below, but just know if you're considering other proposals, EMC's form is built that way, but most other carriers or most other insurance groups are not built that way. So you would need to make sure you're scheduling property individually if you're going outside of EMC, which if they're quoting apples to apples, you likely wouldn't see coverage built in. So it's just something for the city to consider as they evaluate their options. Any questions there? Okay. Workers' compensation did go up by 5.12%. This is driven primarily by exposure changes. Rates for workers' compensation are generally going down, but as payrolls increase, you're going to see that being the driver of premium. So these were based on the previous year's audit figures. So you're not necessarily seeing a pure rate increase. What you're seeing is increased exposures based on payrolls being up for the workers' compensation. Next page is the crime policy. That is increasing by $40 annually or 9.55%. Another big difference on EMC's policy form is there are limits built in at $150,000 for employee theft, for computer funds transfer fraud. Most competitors are not giving public entities beyond the scope of $10,000 of limit. So that's another thing to consider is in the event that there's a theft, some type of employee fraud, EMC's policy is going to respond with a much higher limit than what other carriers in the market are going to. And then finally, the cyber policy, that is actually with an insurance carrier called CFC. They oversee the EMC Safety Group program. They are a specialized carrier for cyber insurance. You're going to see $1 million limit is the aggregate on this policy. It is a significant increase year over year from $2,400 annually to over $5,000, which we recognize. This is purely rate driven by market experience. There are an incredible amount of frequency and severity claims when it comes to cyber. It is probably the number one risk that public entities face is in the event that their systems are hacked and there is data that is lost. This is the policy that's going to indemnify. Once again, significant differences between EMC's offering and ICAP's offering that we can talk more about. So you're going to see year over year, the increase is 12% to the city. I hate to come in here and tell you that that is good news, but that is right in line and probably on the lower side of where most municipal accounts are renewing this year. In the insurance industry, folks don't want to hear it, and I get it. But it has been unprofitable in Iowa the last several years. A lot of that is driven by weather events. You think about something like derecho in 2020. It's the #1 costliest claim in the Midwest throughout history, just dollar for dollar. It's been things like that throughout that are impacting insurance companies that write primarily in Iowa. EMC is based here, and that's where they do a bulk of their business, especially in the public entity space. So 12% is a renewal number that I understand impacts the city in a big way. I just want to tell you benchmark where you're at compared to other public entities. That's on the low end of where most cities throughout the state of Iowa are renewing with the EMC program or with other carrier options. At this point, what I want to do is also, well, two things. You'll see on the next page, historically, the program has provided dividends to the city of Stuart. So this is going to list out previous year's dividends that have been paid back to the city. Unfortunately, in 2022, there was not a dividend paid back. First time in a long history within the program that was the case, but the program was unprofitable, so they couldn't justify paying dividends back. What you would have seen were higher renewal increases had they chose to elect to distribute dividends back. But these are the other dividends that were accounted for over previous years. If we exited the program, we would forfeit the right to any future dividends, which they don't know at this point because we're still early in the year, but we have had good loss experience so far throughout the program to this point. So it's hard to say that they're anticipating a dividend when we're so far out in the future, but we're on track to have that happen as of this year at this point. So the final page in here is going to be a overview of coverage differences between EMC's offering and ICAP's offering. I want to pause before going through this just out of the sake of time for council and for the public. I know when we presented at the utilities the other night, ICAP chose not to give a proposal to the utilities based on timelines. So I don't know if they're actively choosing to give a proposal tonight. What I don't want to do is go through another 15 to 20 minutes of your time explaining all the differences if ICAP isn't making a proposal.
Is
So
any
you
of
want to talk to that.
ICAP healed? Do you know heal? So we can start here.
Okay, you bet.
Okay, so we go back to that page where it shows that last year our premium was 87,000. This year is 98,000. That page. So the $10,550 increase in the premium. Is there any way we can work around that down the road to kind of reduce it?
What we have done throughout our conversations, this proposal does reflect a deductible increase that we did on the property, which has saved us $1,970 from what the initial rating was at. We also increased deductibles to $500 for collision or comprehensive and collision coverage. So we've done some of the things that we can do. Unfortunately, a lot of what the policies are premium based on are things like payroll, things like annual revenues projected, things like number of employees. So what I'd say, Ash and Mike, to your guys' credit, you guys have asked the right questions about, can we review the vehicle schedule? Can we look at other? We did talk about projected rate increases this year at an earlier meeting. So to your guys' credit, you asked the right questions. Aside from reducing limits and removing coverage,
The first proposal we got was exceeding the 100,000. So we had worked with them quite a bit to get it to this point. So this is where we had our insurance policy expired April 1st. So it's time for us to decide. We had offered the other insurance agent in town the opportunity to present us with a proposal, but they didn't have enough time to do
And
it.
how many years have you represented? Between Sean Belton and Lauren and now, how many? How many years?
Yeah, so Lauren sold the agency to First Main Insurance. I am a newer team member. My father's agency actually sold to the company that's based out of Clinton, Iowa, which is what brought me on board. So my years of experience in the industry, I spent 4 years focused on commercial insurance. Now they've had, what we've recognized is we have 25 plus locations throughout the state. A majority of our clients that are complex, that really need strategic advice, that need to think about this outside of just purely premium. We recognize that a lot of that is in the city, county, and school district space. To specifically focus on this, to still allow Janice to be the pulse of the community, to be the one that knows really what's going on, which allows me to do my job with entities throughout the state. So.
So,
Do you just need a motion to approve
yeah, we
it?
need a motion.
I'll make that motion. Yes.
Moved by Renslow,
I'll second it.
by Kirkpatrick. How do you vote? Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
Morgan,
Yeah.
Dolly?
Yes.
Renslow?
Yes.
Bubba?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
So, I'm doing 7.
17 over here.
Okay, 8, town cleanup, Bob, you want to talk?
Yeah, please. Is Molly in here?
Molly Dolce?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, she didn't know. She went to Wisconsin this weekend. My name's Bob Cook. I'm Dick's brother. And I've been involved with Dick and others, including Molly, our FFA director last year, and their group for town cleanups in 2018, 2019, no 2020 for various reasons. A lot was just the world was different. 2021. And last year, and when we started in 2018, it was neat because it had been decades since it had been done. If you drive our community through the alleys, you won't question whether we need a cleanup. And we're asking approval to hold another one on the 29th and 30th of April. It will be similar to what we did last year. We will offer pickup for those that are unable, and we try to really push a little bit without being mean, that you really need us to come get that, or, some people can't get stuff there. And we hauled, I was so happy last year, we hauled a big load for a lady who'd been just widowed recently from Northwest Stuart, and it made me feel good, and she was appreciative. There are a lot of pickups like that, and we'll offer those Friday morning 8 to 10 and Saturday morning 8 to 10. And then we'll open the gates after the pickup. And the FFA kids, Molly had a great group of them last year that joined in. And then I'd like to talk a little bit about the older volunteers, which is the mayor's, I believe 68, 67? 7. I'm 68, closing in on 69. But I'm really proud, beyond those young kids and Molly, and they were world beaters, is Gene Skellinger, who's 10 or 11 years older than I am, was there all day, both days last year. He's going to be back again. He's kind of our senior advisor. And we'll try to get some others because we need some more. It was an outstanding effort. Dick had a picture in the council packet. I think one of the better things last year was Molly had a recycler she hauled, and she did this out of her pocket, her truck, her equipment. And they got stacked up, all those appliances, hauled them to clear down by Belisco to a recycler. All those left town. People were happy. They went to a recycler, and she's going to do the same thing again. We're going to shut down earlier this year. We're going to shut down at 3 and just ask people, bring your stuff. We're not going to run clear till 6, 5 or 6. It's just too long of a day, that second day. The typical trash, batteries, metal available. We're going to make a big public push. We don't want you bringing your recyclables. You need to get rid of those cardboard, clear glass, plastic stuff ahead of time. There's no reason to haul that to landfill. We're not going to take yard waste. We had a couple people bringing in yard waste. We're not going to do that. And will it be 100% clean? No, because I'm not going to be the cop up there being mean to people. And one last thing before you discuss this and asking questions. it was wonderful last year. We met and had a lot of people from the new area of town who new to town. And if people ask, why should we have this? Well, a lot of people that we want to come to this town or that are here expect to be able to have something like this to help the town improve. And those people, we got great feedback from brand new citizens. A lot of them hadn't been to any other community events, but this was publicized, and we'll do it again. So that's our plans, and we're gonna limit loads again the first year we did this, we got abused, and we're not gonna do that again. People that have been, older than me and had a lifetime of stuff, and we're not gonna do that. But other than that, we're gonna try to be workable for everybody, pick up the ability to pick up for everybody that really needs it. And that's all just volunteer vehicles and volunteer staff. Any
I got a few comments
Yeah.
too, if you're done. It was successful, but I want to get the word out that we do have a sticker program in town. You're supposed to get 2 33-gallon bags with Avy's collection, and people are putting more out. And I told Scott Avy to start charging, and I've got a list here of different people. He charges actually when he picks up. It's easy to do it that way instead of bringing up to our cleanup. And as far as the cost to do this, last year, Marty Derry from Penora's done this for me numerous years. He'll bring in 40-yard roll-offs, 30, and he'll bring in ones for metal, and anyone that's filled up with metal, he'll take and weigh and takes that off of our cost. But I'm asking the citizens if they have a swing set, please tear it down, because they bring a whole swing set, and then that takes up so much room. I went over the shop, used the Sawzall and cut them down. That's time consuming. But the cost of Marty Dairy was $7 the dumpsters. The cost of the landfill was $1541.40. So the total cost of our cleanup was $3241.40 last year.
Can I
Not a
ask,
dime for all those appliances that left town.
Yes.
is there any way we can also check with the local dumpster guy here in town to see if there's a price difference?
I would if he was in a commercial area, and I'm gonna have Jason talk about that in a little bit.
I'd just like to thank you, Mayor, for starting this, and Bob, both of you, and the volunteers over the years, because I know I volunteered up there with you guys before.
Yeah, you have.
And it's a good thing for the citizens, because not everybody can get out to the land.
We always appreciate good
I still-
muscle.
Yes.
So whether he's in a commercial area or not, I guess that's on him, but why can't we price check to see if there's a difference?
Well, my problem is, how can I give a citation to a person that's running a business out of his house, residential, and then hire him for the city?
But it's not in our code that he can't.
We don't know yet. We got code enforcement that's already sent out a notice. And there's other areas in town. I mean, the body shop, we got on him.
Right, but that's actually in the code, that you can't have an auto body
But
in the
but
code.
we're
But I don't
checking.
know that a dumpster business is actually in the code.
Jason's gonna talk about this.
I don't know.
We need a motion.
I would move forward with that.
Okay. Moved by Kaba, do we have a second?
I'll second it, but I do agree, if we can get dumpsters cheaper or something, I mean, I'm not opposed to.
Just getting bids from anybody or.
Yeah, and I don't care who it's from. I mean, just, if it saves us money, it saves us money. I mean, I think it's a great thing that we're doing here.
But there is a big difference in the size of the dumpsters.
But if
One
he
I'm
can
talking
provide the
40
same
year.
amount, if he can provide 3 dumpsters,
Right?
I don't know why we have to cut him out.
I think right now we're just moving to have
do
to
that.
and then we can always look at the other part later. We just want to know now, are we going to even do it?
Right. I'll second it.
Okay, second, okay. So how do you vote? Kirkpatrick,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes.
Renslow,
Yes.
Kaba?
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
11, Historic Preservation Commission Annual Report. Matt?
Hello. I'll be fast. Basically, my name is Matthew Krantz with the Historic Preservation Commission. I know some of y'all, but not enough. Basically, I'm just here to report that our 2021 report on activities has been submitted to the state and accepted, so that way Stuart retains its certified local government status for different things. And just the main gist of the report was that we met the training that was required, and we didn't really have a whole lot of activities due to COVID stuff, and we're short 2 members right now, so we're desperately needing 2 new members. But apart from that, that's it for me.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 12, Jason?
I'm gonna be as fast as I can as well.
I'd like to thank you for coming out. I
Absolutely.
asked, just so everybody knows, I had a conversation with Sarah and asked that he come out and make a presentation, since we're not really on the same page on where we need to be with our residential building
Well, thank you for having me.
stuff.
Jason Van Osdal, the Eastern Chem. I'm your building official for commercial and industrial. And we've been doing this service for the city for quite a long time. What that actually means is the process that we provide for numerous communities in central Iowa, 21 actually. And kind of give you the lowdown for what that looks like, because we'd like to provide the same thing for the residential side for the community. We do not do that right now. Commercial and industrial, when we have a wants to do a tenant finish, a new building, whatever, an addition, whatever that might be, from a Carl Chevrolet building on down to whatever kind of commercial building it would be, we would get interest from that party, talk about what they're wanting to do, give them all of the back information for zoning, all of the permitted uses, all of the submittal information that needs to be submitted to us. They hear that from our mouths, and we talk through what needs to happen. They would typically send over a schematic review. We would go through all of the big ticket items, sprinkler systems, setbacks, location, zoning, all of these things we would provide to them. They would submit to us for an official plan review. We provide a plan review worksheet back to that person, work compliant building. We do the fees, send that back to the city, and then come back out for the required inspections, from footings to groundworks to foundations to electrical, mechanical, plumbing, final, all the way through. We do everything for that. What we want to do is have a consistency for the city, just like we do for all the rest of our other communities, to provide that same level of service residentially. And that's something for you guys to deliberate about and talk about. Because we do that same thing for Von Grant and Dallas Center and Ranger and Sonora and DeSoto, and the list goes on and on. And we have 6 inspectors that work for me as well, with Green K. So with that being said, I want to answer any questions that you might have that have been outstanding, or issues that have been brought to you folks that I can try to answer for you residentially or commercial side. Do you have anything, anybody?
I don't have questions, but it was enlightening to me to know that we didn't have certain guidelines on our residential, considering the fact that we have all these new houses going up.
Right.
And
You guys are consistently, steadily growing.
yes,
You're
and the
moving
fact that we
right
didn't
along.
have these guidelines, it kind of took me back.
What kind of guide? I'm just.
I have a licensed inspector, but that's it.
Okay, yeah, I'm just kind of
So we
unfamiliar
don't
with
inspect for
why this
footings,
came up.
for
Yeah.
footings and all plumbing, I mean, none of this stuff out at the new housing development that's supposed to be done is not being done.
In the inspections, right?
In the inspections, permits, things of this sort, so.
No sewers, no nothing gets inspected out there?
No, sir.
I'm a licensed plumber, and I've walked through a couple
You've been
of
out
homes, and they are just not up to code.
Yeah, so for me, I was really taken back by this, that this was not in place. So that's why Jason's here, is because then I said, Sarah, I think this is something that we need to be informed about. Asked her to have Jason come out.
And Jason, if a person built a new house and then 5 years later sold it, and then all of a sudden said, hey, all these things are not up to code.
That goes to district court. Right now, right now it go to district court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is plumbing, electrical, HVAC.
Everything.
And then if you're anything like me, you're thinking, what does this cost? It doesn't cost the city anything. It's the same thing for your commercial. It's a user-based fee. When there's a new casing to be built or whatever like that, the permit is split with the city just like it is. So no resolution has to happen or anything. It's just adding the residential side to your existing service contract is what it is.
Did you send any fees to the city?
Yeah, that's what you got.
Okay. So we don't have to have an actual.
Right now, we have a zoning administrator.
What's
Right
that?
now.
I'm sorry.
We have zoning administrator on the residential side. With his proposal, you don't have to have.
Which we would do all that for you.
Yes.
So please bear with me. This is not my expertise. So there's no fees to the city, but they charge the homeowner to have all these inspected?
To the permit applicant.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're gonna go build a new house, we would go through the process to get you compliant plans, direction to move forward, all the submittals are had, and then, we figure the fee. We are very transparent. We give you all of the things that are out there. You see exactly how it is derived. So there's no magic number picked out of the book. You can see all the math that's in there. And then that fee is sent over to the city, and then the city makes a copy of everything. So the city keeps 20% and we keep 80%.
It's not just for new homes, it's for like
Everything.
additions.
Everything.
So right now, we kind of have a building inspector. There's a person in town that was doing that, right? And then we had a certain fee for that, but those costs would definitely go up from that, right? Probably.
Yeah, and you gotta be licensed.
Sure, no,
How many licenses do you have?
right, and I understand all that. I'm just kind of getting at, whatever it's gonna be hard to tell for every project, right? There's not gonna be like a flat fee.
No, but I would say that, when you're doing your smaller projects for your small garages or whatever that case may be, the fees are, right along with everybody else around. Yeah, there's no exorbitant fee that you're gonna be like, oh my goodness.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean, you add a garage on there and you get charged $5,000 for that,
Yeah.
maybe that's what it is, I don't know.
So these builders out here, they're already paying these fees in other towns
In the same set of rules.
and the same set of rules. They
Sure.
just know here that we don't have those rules,
Right.
so it's
And
more money in their
I
pocket.
totally agree, yeah, I totally agree.
The
So,
only problem we had before, Mike, we had stronger code, and a person had a modular home they brought in, was totally inspected in Wisconsin. He brought it, and then they wanted to charge him to completely inspect it. He says it's already been inspected, and the trouble was the sheetrock and electrical was all done while they inspected up in Wisconsin when the electrical was going in, and I was involved that, he was arguing a double fee on this.
Oh, no, I understand the importance of it, I'm just, so I know, because like I said, it's not like,
so I'd like to make the motion to go ahead and engage residential services with B&K and move forward with that.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved in seconds, how do you vote, Kirkpatrick?
Yep.
Dolly?
Yep.
Renzo?
Yes.
Kava?
Yes.
Okay. While
Thank
you're
you,
here,
Jason.
will you talk a little bit about
Let's do it.
what Max
Thank you
does?
for that last one. Appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
So, and we can bounce around. Let's just talk about what you have on your mind. Let's talk about zoning. So when you have your R1 zoning, that's, predominantly throughout the old part of town, that has a permitted use of residential use. That's it. That's all there is to it. Now, can you do a low impact of running maybe IT out of your basement office, or maybe you do some sort of a consulting business out of your office, or something like that, where you're not going to have a high traffic impact into that residential neighborhood and cause any kind of a disturbance. That's what you don't want to do, is cause a disturbance in the residential. If there's something in the gray area, you can apply to the city for a special use permit or a home occupation permit, and you would make application to the city, and they would review that about what kind of an impact that is to the surrounding neighbors, and that's exactly what they're doing. What kind of traffic flow, parking problems, noise things, storage issues, so on and so forth. They would talk through that and then either grant or not that home occupation. But until then, the answer is it's residential.
And years ago, Jason, we passed a comprehensive plan in 1980. I get the feedback, well, why can this person do it before the comprehensive plan? We have a garbage hauler who was in business before the comprehensive plan, and that's the reason he had to have his dumpsters at his place. But after that, even horses at my place, I used to have horses, they changed the code, had to get rid of the horses in that area.
So that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, if you, I mean, let's just say that you had a home occupation and you wanted to do, can't even think of what would be obtrusive, but look,
We have
embalming.
bakeries
Fixing
around
cars
here.
is very typical. Fixing cars, and you know, you're going to have 2 or 3 or 4 people. Maybe you're going to change oil out of your residential garage. That would be an absolute no-no. Right? Yep. That's just, it's just not. It's too intrusive. It's a, you know, it's a high impact, and you keep that in your commercial zoning district. That's what the permitted uses listing. When we're going to do a plan review for something, that is the first book that I open is your city's zoning book to see if that use fits in that permitted zoning. Sure. And if it doesn't, then we work through the issue from there.
There's no being grandfathered in if it was beforehand, like you were saying.
Right, yeah, that doesn't work. That doesn't work.
And I talked to Jason last time, the council kind of got on Max about a situation where you put down the lady to power wash your house. Well, give her an extension to do it. But I told him on the other hand, where this Fitch or Mumford's just moved out of, this press board halfway up in the house, there's no siding. And I said, we have to move forward on some of these issues because there's absolutely no siding on all sides of the house. So there's a fine line on how far to push, but I talked to Max. Tires and junk and everything else. And where there's completely no siding.
And so for those of you who didn't follow that channel, so Max is my youngest son who has Iowa code enforcement and is evidently a terrorist to the elderly. That was yesterday's thing. So he's a terrorist to the elderly. And on behalf of Max with Iowa Code Enforcement, thank you for the support of the town cleanup. That is a huge thing. I mean, that gets talked about with Max all the time. So a lot of this that's happening behind the scenes, people are counting on that. They want to be able to utilize that resource. So you've had a couple other things that we wanted to talk about. What was that? We talked about that last one.
Siding. You gave Nadine the price.
Can we go back to the residential thing?
Yeah.
So you have bakeries and daycares. I mean, with daycares, you got people going in and out, and that's okay in residential areas?
No. If you're going to have a home is with one of our people that works at B&K. She has out of her house. What she doesn't have is people coming and going out of her house, that high impact. Can she bake her head off till all hours of the morning? Absolutely. Knock yourself out. I bake as well. But you are going to not be impactful to the surrounding neighbors. They shouldn't even know what she's doing.
Okay.
Bake away and take it away.
So that's
absolutely
that's the catch there.
Yeah, you're just not having that going on. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a couple examples, at least one up toward my area where there was a home addition, a shoddy, miserable home addition to a shoddy, miserable home that got done without any city building permit, no inspection or anything. And anything go about retroactively, we just.
No, something like that. No,
That's
that's gonna probably sit with that person until they go to sell it, and then logic prevails at that point in time.
Okay.
To kind of take that one step further, let's just say that house that you just described wanted to do an addition tomorrow, because this would happen immediately. So they would submit foundation plans, building plans, truss plans, the energy information that I need to have, so that before they ever start, they're gonna have everything that they need to have.
What about those that don't? They just start working.
Oh, well, they get to see it. I'm pretty nice today. But then they get to see the stop work order gets posted, and then the city gets aware of what's going on out there. So yes, and we can have the police show up and remove the contractors. Yeah, we have a lot of authority in the building code. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
The last thing, Jason, I just would like you to work with the city hall on changing the building permit and all the stuff, you know,
Oh, absolutely.
so I will leave that up to you.
Okay.
So
Thank
just-
you.
Yes, well, anytime. Thank you very much.
Just to let everybody know, they need to contact the city. So here on out, I mean, there's a lot of people watching this on,
Yeah, there will be a whole different process.
It will, and it'll be reflected on the city website, so if you, it's say, I want to do an addition onto my home, or I want to build a new house, we want to have that information very readily available so that they can, in the living room or their office, get all the information that they have to apply, and submit plans.
So what
Yeah, everybody
happens
now can get
with
the
some of these
information.
houses that are half built out here?
If they've already pulled a permit.
Okay.
But you can get any permits now, all the forms online. You can go to online and get that stuff.
Yeah.
We just want it to be quick, so. we
Yeah,
can-
I'll stop in to see you then.
And then
Thank you.
can you let Matt know, so if Matt talks to these builders out here, they are aware that we have.
Yes, as soon as I get Jason going, because this is the information we're gonna get.
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you guys,
Appreciate it.
anytime if you need me, okay?
Thank you, Jason.
All right, thank you.
Okay, 13, utility water improvement project, water tower project,
Yeah,
resolution number 2215C
we need a motion for A and B.
and B, you're doing today.
That's utility business, we just having to have those with the keys. Moved by
Caldwell. Second by Dolly. How do you vote? Patrick,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes.
Renslow,
Yes.
Cobal.
Yes.
Okay. 14, city attorney approval. I wasn't here last meeting, I run it over the phone, and there's a little miscommunication on this. I've been here 16 years, and Bill Bump, I worked with him, he was here 30 years. Beverly Wild started in 2015, she's been here 7 years with our organization. And a lot of the things she's worked on, helping with is code enforcement. She worked on the Mark Quinn building, Burger King, Darrell Edwards, Andy Forrest, Mumford, All Saints Project Restore, White Pole Road, vacate South Fremont, miscellaneous items. And one thing I talked to Chief Rehaw and Beverly about is one advantage of having her in Guthrie Center, she's right at the courthouse, right next to the magistrate. So, like I say, you have a proposal from her and the people up to Perry. I've had real good.
We have representatives.
From Perry. Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mayor and council, my name is Mark Powell. I'm with Finisette, Dale and Powell in Perry, Iowa. This is Mitchell Kearns. This is Mitchell's first day with our firm, so.
Oh,
Congratulations.
first
Yeah,
day.
lucky him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, trial by fire then.
But my partner Dwayne Dalen submitted was requested to submit a proposal and did so. Just kind of a brief overview of that proposal. We represent a number of municipalities of about the same size as Stuart. We represent Perry, Woodward, DeSoto, City of Madrid, also some smaller communities, Dawson, Linden. I represent the Perry Municipal Water Works and do a lot of work with the municipal utilities side of things as well. But we do have quite a bit of experience working with communities on their municipal government and utility work. We pride ourselves on our responsiveness and teamwork with the municipalities and will work with you however you want. Some communities like the city administrator to do the lion's share of the communications. Others want the mayor or the council to do that. We will work with you however you wish. But in terms of knowing where the Guthrie County Courthouse is, I'm well aware of that. I was magistrate judge in Dallas County for 5 years. I come from a litigation background, prosecuted a number of cases, have defended a number of cases. So we have a pretty well-versed area of expertise, and just we're very appreciative of the opportunity to present our background to you.
Thank you.
You're done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cool.
I know when, are we doing a motion?
Yeah, we need a motion.
Right, I know when Ms. Wild was here, or maybe she wasn't here, but when we went over her proposal, she talked about a shorter window minimum, like a 5 minute, or instead of a 1/10 of an hour, I think she did a 1/12 of an hour. Is that something, what's your like minimum, you take a phone call? And
We don't have a minimum. What we do is we build it a 1/10 of an hour.
10, okay.
Yeah, so it's every 6
So-
minutes, I guess would be the.
I think
Yep.
that's
Yep,
common,
that's
'cause I think-
very common.
I think she did a 12 instead of a 10. But-
That's what we talked about.
Right, okay. I didn't see it in there, so I just wanted to make sure.
So are you just waiting?
So I,
Need a motion.
yeah,
well-
this, I was gonna make a motion to go, because I know your firm just, was, chosen for the utilities. I think it would benefit us, this is a little additional since the last meeting, that it would benefit us to have the same attorney's office, so we're on the same page with utilities and city stuff. So I would move to, accept their proposal and, whatever your, finish that Damon and Powell.
So here's my 2 cents worth,
Yeah.
just throwing it out there. I do support going with this new firm. I think it will also allow the city to have ongoing issues taken care of without having to reach out to a more expensive attorney and use Steve Brick for certain things.
Switch those 3 things over.
We can move things to these gentlemen and have the quick answer without waiting, or spending more money on waiting on these answers. I known Mitch for a long time and he is a great attorney, so I have complete faith in these guys and I've heard nothing but good things about them, so.
We have a motion.
I will second Mike's motion.
Second by Hensley.
There's 1 year, right? Just for 1 year.
No, you hire, you appoint him
Hire
until
him
you.
and then you're-
Yeah, you're hiring.
Okay. Moved in seconds, how do you vote? Patrick,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes.
Renslow,
Yes,
Kava?
Yes.
And
Can I have your business cards? Because I'll probably be contacting you.
And that's effective immediately. I'll be working with them tomorrow to kind of set things up with them. And we'll look at that.
and so on that note, Ash, the 3 ongoing issues, trees, ATVs,
Okay.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break.
Yes,
what was the other one?
that's the 2 issues that we have.
Yeah, and so will you ask that these guys take care of that?
Yes. Yes, everything's gonna be-
Thank you very much.
Probably.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess, thank you.
Hey,
Thank you. Were you trying to get it?
We met.
Maybe I should steer you towards my side. So are you on the?
Yeah.
Are you on that board?
No, I'm
Not yet?
ISBA board, I'm actually treasurer of Dallas. Yeah, okay. And then I actually got on real estate.
I understand you make it hard,
Yeah, so I'm kind of regulating real estate, try to get agents, making sure they're not.
Really want to say, like, we would be greatly
Yeah.
appreciated.
I didn't know you were part of that board.
No, I haven't.
Not on that board yet.
No,
Not yet.
local, I like the local bars, Dallas County. Likewise, thank you.
Yeah, I thought
Hey, awesome.
You get it.
Find
just
your
have
glass.
to-
Making a
Yes.
Yeah, first day, I was like, geez, they got me, we're getting late tonight, but.
All right. Oh, yeah.
This is like-
I will forward it on to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we better.
Yes. I'll take it here. You gotta make sure better.
Right, I just.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. But we do that. Back in here. You're back in here.
Right, I know.
Oh.
Stuff like
Yeah.
Fridays.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, start back up. So 15, development agreement with the hotel. Let's see, Matt's not here.
Which I would speak on
Okay.
this. This is, let's go with the public one. This is
Okay.
development agreement that we already have established with the hotel.
Matt, at the
Stuart
hotel.
Hotel, and the news building. We've been working with them for the last 3-4 months to get to this point, that to have that development.
And they're actually working on the building.
Yeah.
If anybody cares to know.
So that's
Yeah.
where we're at now, just approving the development agreement, and that will be the last phase of this too.
Okay, so I'll open the public hearing now. Did you receive anything, Annie?
No.
Any comments, concerns? General public? Close the public hearing. D, resolution number 12C.
So moved.
Moved by Reslow,
Second.
second by Dolly. How do you vote? Patrick?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Renslow?
Yes.
Kava?
Yes.
Okay, 16, development agreement. And at this time, I open the public hearing. Did you receive anything on this one, Alice?
No.
Any comments, concerns?
No.
Close public hearing. B, resolution number 2213C.
So moved.
Moved by Renslow,
Second.
second by Dolly. How do you vote? Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Renslow?
Yes.
Kava?
Yes.
18, Bob Olson.
You're up, Bob.
Thank you. 6 months ago, I came before the board and asked about possibly adding a stop sign on the west side of North Second Street, mainly because of the excess speed that's going up and down that street. Some of you were here at the time. There were 2 people on the board that talked positively about possibly adding a stop sign. So I left that meeting that night feeling very positive that something was going to be done as far as a stop sign. 1 month later, I hadn't been notified as far as your decision. I happened to be walking my dog at the old sports fields, and Dick came up to me and asked, "I hope you're picking up the dog waste." At that point in time, I showed him my plastic bags and told him, yes, I do. And since I bring up that topic, I'd like to also mention the receptacle that sits down there right on that track, that walk around. The one major receptacle for the last 2 months, it's been filled to the rim with dog waste. So I've been carrying mine up around to the shelter house, there happens to be a couple garbage cans there, and that's where I've been putting mine. Just to give you an idea. Okay, so I asked Dick what was the decision, and he told me that you had decided to monitor the situation because you'd had some success out on the racetrack area with that. And I thought, okay, I'll let that go with that. And I asked about the decision, and it was, like I said, monitor. And he said because one of the street personnel had said because of the slope that he wouldn't recommend a stop sign at that corner. That corner is at 2 blocks down in that 4-block area. I did not refute the decision at that time. Instead, I wrote a letter to the editor here in town and mentioned to them that has not worked at all. The excess speed up and down this street. 3 months later, I saw the chief of police out here, so I pulled in, asked her, all right, excuse me, I didn't ask her at first, I
That
told her.
wouldn't be the chief.
What's that?
Katie is not the chief. Dave Rehall is the chief.
Oh, okay. I assumed that it was the lady. Anyway, I saw her out there. And I mentioned to her about the problem. You know what her response was to me? To come to the board and express my concerns. That just happened to be the night of a board meeting. So that's 4 months after the decision was rendered. There had been no monitoring during that 4 months. She told me that herself. She did say that they had 2 new officers. She would mention to them that about the problem on this street. At that point, I even suggested to her, at that spot where the stop sign was going to be, or could be, to have the patrolman sit on that side street when they're monitoring. Now, I'm only talking about 5:15 to 6:15 in the evening, because that's when I've really noticed the problem. Now, they're speeding other times, but that's the time where I've noticed it. Okay, like I said, I even gave her a suggestion what they might try to do to stop this problem. 2 months later now, after that, during the past week, the one night, there were 4 times when vehicles were going, now I'm talking just from 5:15 to 6:15, there were 4 times when vehicles were going over 60 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour down that street. Another day that last week now, I'm talking about last week, another time, there were 5 vehicles going over 40 miles an hour down that street. Maybe I'm wrong, but isn't residential speed limits 25 in our town? Okay. Let's check concerning having a stop sign on that corner. First of all, I checked 2 blocks to the north of me on that street. On that street, there are 3 stop signs and 1 yield sign at 2-block intervals to slow traffic down. Now I'm talking on the street going now east and west. 3 stop signs.
4th Street.
I guess that'd be 4th Street. Yeah. There's 3 stop signs and 1 yield sign that would slow people going east to west. Next, I'd also like to mention on the east end of North Second Street, a 4-block segment from the school to about where the Catholic Church is out there. There are 3 stop signs on that street. 3 stop signs. 2 of them have as much slope, if not more slope, than the one where I'm requesting that the stop sign be placed. And a lot of that 4-block area is not even residential. A lot of it's taken up by the old sale barn area and the vet clinic. And on the other side of the street is the Catholic Church ground. So there's a lot of that area that's not even a residential area. Okay, now getting back to that where that stop sign could be placed, coming from the east to where that corner would be, it is completely flat, the entire block coming up to that corner. It doesn't start of any type of incline until you're on the other side of the street. Even the intersection area is flat. And I would say that that slope on the other side is a gradual slope going up from there, that entire next block. Okay, then I'd like to talk about, well, they said, well, because of the snow, it could be a problem. I want to give you an example of the last 2 snowfalls. We had 5-inch snowfalls, approximately, each time. On the first day, the temperature at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 8. By 11 o'clock the next day, that street was completely clean from curb to curb on both sides. Completely clean. The next 5-inch snowfall, the temperature high was 32 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, the street was completely clearing from curb to curb all the way. Now I know that that's not going to be all situations, but that's just to give you one idea. Let's say the snow did accumulate on the east end of that second, where that stop sign could be placed. During the last 2 snows, the city, for example, spent a half day each day on those snowfalls of cleaning off snow in the middle of the streets of town. A half day each time. The time I'm talking about, putting some maybe sand or gravel, if there was a problem, is what, 5 minutes at the most to dump a little sand or salt on that. They would already be treating those corners on the east of North 2nd Street, those blocks. Because 2 of those have, like I said, more incline, or as much or more incline than the one where I'm talking about. Also, they would be treating the ones that are 2 blocks to the north of me, because the one has an extreme pitch on both sides of the intersection. Also mentioning, if you look where we consider the old Sergeant section, coming down down to Highway 6, there's a steep, extremely steep piece there that definitely, if there's a problem with snow accumulation, would have to be sanded and salted. Guess how many blocks that would be from the one I'm talking about? 3 blocks. They'd be treating that one on the railroad tracks there on the right side. All they'd have to do is come 3 blocks, and the street which they need to be treating is on the right side of that street. So not a big problem for the city treating that. Another thing I'd like to stress, the weather is warming now. And there'll be a lot of people walking, pushing strollers, running, bicycling, and skateboarding down this street. It's always been that way. A lot of people. And it's definitely time for a stop sign to slow people down. Okay, I guess at this point, if you have any questions or comments for me?
I'd like to say something. Just as a background, I'm not for or against this. The last time Mr. Olson came, we discussed it. Mr. Belden informed you, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but this is my recollection. Mr. Belden informed you that we would monitor it for a month, and Jim and Dave would come back to us with a recommendation. And he told you that we would have an answer at the next meeting. And if I remember right, you came to the next council meeting, and
No,
I believe
I've
that
never
it
been to
was
another
Dave.
council meeting since I made the presentation.
I believe it was Dave's recommendation and Jim that there was no need for, was that right, Dave?
I didn't have anything to do with the stop sign. I don't have an opinion either way on that one, but I think, and I don't want to put words in Jim's mouth, because I think it had something to do with, he thought that the ice or that it would be too slick.
Monitored the area, correct?
Yeah, and recently too with this new round of, I was under the impression that it was an earlier timeline before, and maybe that's miscommunication, but the way that I understood it from the first complaint was that it was during like school being out hours, early evening, so we were monitoring at that point. That's usually when we tend to see the larger amount of speeders through town. We got a lot of teenagers driving around and being reckless and kind of dumb, so a lot of us take that time when we're working to really focus on traffic enforcement. But this last time when I saw the 5:30 to 6:30 window, I actually had an officer sit there. He monitored 5 cars that went by. There was the fastest car we could find was 33, which is above the speed limit, but it's not, it's exponentially above the speed limit. There are probably times where there's cars that speed through there. I don't know. But without us having some way to, put a sensor there to monitor that, we can only be there for so long, for so many times.
Right.
The other thing I would mention too, we ran into this issue a couple years ago. I don't remember what intersection. I don't know if it was the one out by the cemetery.
It was the one by the cemetery.
And it was actually my opinion at the time, let's put a stop sign there to slow traffic down. I thought that's a good way to stop the flow of traffic. And when we researched the National Highway Standard, they have their own set of rules and regulations. They actually prohibit cities and counties from installing stop signs as a speed control measure. Now, that was a shock to me because I thought it's a no-brainer. If you put a stop sign in, you're going to slow traffic down. But I know that became an issue on that intersection where you cannot use stop signs as a speed control measure. You can use them for justified reasons if there's accidents, if there's other things that you can prove have been happening there. But as a speed control only, it's against the National Code, Traffic Safety Code.
Thank you.
And didn't they change the sign because the bus was getting stopped there?
Yeah,
Couldn't
we
take-
changed
That was
it
at that
to a yield.
intersection,
Yeah,
yeah, because
changed
it
it
was
to a
having
yield
problems
sign.
slipping.
Then why would there be 3 stop signs on the east end of North Second Street?
That's before my time, and Corey Geisinger did say predominantly, you don't put a stop sign where you come into a T, but right where my daughter lives, that's a T. right there.
So like I said, that's just
But
kind
there
of a
again,
backstory
Bob,
on that.
I've sat at her place numerous times, saw people go right past. What I try to do is get license plate numbers. Then I can say, hey, I mean, my son-in-law got in a big argument, somebody didn't stop the other day.
It doesn't seem logical to me to spend police time monitoring that when you can solve that problem with the traffic on there by a mere stop sign.
What's the north-south road?
What's that?
What's the north road?
Is that west?
North Expedition.
Expedition.
Exposition.
Yeah.
Dave,
I would also mention, I know it was a couple months ago, I handed out that flyer for the speed sign thing. There are versions of that, I don't know if it's that exact one, but there are versions of that that'll actually register the speeds over a certain period of time. Those signs are movable. So, city, like streets department could put them up where we have problem areas. As long as that thing's monitoring speed in that location, it'll keep a log of all the speeds through that time. Now, I will say from talking to other agencies, sometimes that provokes speed because there'll be a teenager that'll want to see how fast he can go. But it will give you kind of a general understanding of what times are speeders going through here, what's the fastest speed recorded, what's the average speed recorded. That may be a way, and it wouldn't just be a permanent solution or to this specific intersection, but let's say we have another problem area come up a year from now.
Let's even talk about that then, as far as not controlling speed. How about all those people that are going up and down that street? Don't we consider their safety? Isn't safety important to keeping those people from getting hit by vehicles? So I don't think it's necessarily a speed control, just speed. It's to control safety on that street.
It is a long stretch. I mean, if you think about it from Gaines on
to there.
I mean, there's no stop sign, so
There's a stop sign at
or-
the four
or
corners of
next-
Harrison.
We saw one in Harrison that was put up during the road construction.
And never taken down, but it's probably the best
Yeah.
thing right there.
It is several blocks though that are uncontrolled as far as yield or stop signs. So I mean, I'm not disagreeing with your point.
If you don't believe me, go over there and see how many people now in the next couple of weeks are gonna be biking, walking, and pushing strollers up and down that street. It's a safety issue too. And I guess another thing that really ticks me off about it, as I said, I walked my dog over at the soccer fields, the old soccer fields. I pull out of that gate. Guess what I see laid against the city fence there? A stop sign. And I walk my dog about every single day down there. I pull out of there, there's that stop sign laying against the fence. That doesn't make sense to me when we got a spot where it really could be used.
Just a quick question. I know you said, Dave, that this regulation prohibits it for a speed thing. I know down on South Adair, they didn't have stop signs for a long time, and now they do down there. Do you recall why they were put in if it wasn't to stop the speed?
I don't
Somebody
recall.
babysitting there.
I don't recall what the issue was. There also was a time years ago where me and Jim were asked by the council to kind of go through the whole town and decide where we thought it would be good places for stop signs and yield signs. 12 years ago before I moved here, I came from Colorado, and Colorado doesn't have yield signs like we do in Iowa. So when I moved here, I thought that was a strange thing. Typically in a small town in Colorado, you're going to see stop signs in almost every block or every couple blocks. Or you go through some places, like even in Des Moines, you'll see some organization with it. Like maybe the north-south streets have a stop sign in every block, but the east-west don't, just to kind of keep the flow of traffic. So I mean, are there other alternatives? I think there are. And I think south of there is probably slowed down since those stop signs.
You'd be surprised, but I'm just curious, that I can't think of any like major accidents on there. And even if there was a daycare, then that comes back into the safety thing. And it's like, why would a daycare be any more important than just an adult resident?
Getting another reason why, if you're looking for safety issues, that entire block area is residential. where people have to back out of their driveways onto that street. Two or three times, my wife has almost been hit. Now, my new vehicle, when I back up, anything coming down the street, it automatically signals me. So I stop. But my wife doesn't have that on her vehicle. And a lot of those neighbors on that street don't have that on their vehicles either. So again, it's not just a speed thing. It's a safety thing as far as I'm concerned.
I'm gonna chime in here, Mr. Olson, real quick. As far as the grade with the street and the snow, ice, we do have equipment to take care of that. No, I'm not concerned with that. I guess for tonight, I do see your point. I heard Chief Rehall's point. I do see that. Listen to Councilman Cobbles about the south side, because anywhere you go on the south side of town, there's a stop sign. And with that, I'm gonna make a motion to put a stop sign going west, going east at the intersection there, and I want it flagged. We'll flag it for a month, just to give people, warning.
Do we have to change the ordinance to do that?
Yeah,
We
there
will
are resolutions.
Or a
have a
resolution?
resolution ready for the next meeting.
Okay,
Go ahead.
we'll do that then.
Yeah, I knew there was
Yeah,
something.
I would also just suggest putting that through Jim, because he's more in line with before the stop sign gets installed, what rules and procedures need to go in. We're all about enforcing it once it's there.
Right.
So he's gonna know better on what the process is. We have to do a traffic study. We have to do something special to put a stop sign there. He would know that stuff. So.
And are you talking at, you were talking at your corner there?
Yeah, but there, it's the halfway point down that 4 blocks.
Right at your corner.
It's halfway down, 2 blocks above and then 2 blocks below it.
Okay, the motion would be to proceed with having a stop sign at the address you mentioned, and refer the item to Jim.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
And the
And,
motion.
I would assume that would be, it's a T, right?
Yes,
Yes.
3 stop signs.
we wouldn't necessarily have to have the third one.
You'd give the northbound or southbound traffic right away.
Sure.
It'd be north going, yes,
It'd be
yes, the
south.
southbound, the right of way, correct. Yep.
Dave,
Just my opinion here completely. I don't have any facts to back this, but I feel like T intersections are awfully confusing when the short side doesn't have a stop sign.
That's what I'm thinking. Do we need
Like-
3 stop signs?
Like the racetrack intersection where we actually stop the long side and not the short side. Well, it's not really a T intersection, but basically it's a dead end further down. We see people blow through it all the time or get confused because they're thinking no one has to stop. So it would be my recommendation, if you're gonna do a stop sign there, to do all 3. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
okay.
Okay, so the motion
Let's
would be
change
to
that, yeah.
proceed with the stop signs
Or just put
So
stop
the
signs
area-
up, they can figure it.
as recommended by Police Chief Rehab and referred to Jim Henderson. I'll be presented to the council at the next meeting.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, so how do you vote? Patrick,
Yes.
Billy,
Yes.
Renzo,
Yes.
Bubba?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
I
Thanks,
really
Mr. Olson.
appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
I'm not lying when I tell you this. For the last 6 months, I've lost sleep because of this matter.
Well,
I have.
Hopefully we can.
Worrying about somebody gonna get hit, my wife's gonna get hit, or somebody else is gonna get hit on that street. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. 19, Police Department, Chief Rehal.
Okay, so I had some information in the update that I give you guys every month. And the first issue would be, I had an injured officer that has to go in for surgery on the 21st. It's my understanding that workers' comp will cover their hours that they're gone, which then frees up their normal salary in their absence. So I would like permission to use that to hire part-time, or if officers have to work overtime to cover those hours, that we use that existing pay to cover those hours. So we're not working extra for nothing.
2 votes.
Okay, I would like to make that motion.
Okay. Moved by Renslow, second.
I'll second.
Second by Kirkpatrick. How do you vote? Kirkpatrick,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes.
Renslow,
Yes.
Cobal,
Yes.
B.
And then I know you guys have read through the update, but for the people that haven't, I just wanted to read this. The Stuart Police Department since the early 2000s has operated with a chief, sergeant, and 2 officers.
Keys in my pocket.
The sergeant is responsible for assisting with some administrative work, department training, supervising, and community functions. The sergeant must be experienced in no department policies and procedures. They're responsible for some supervisory actions and must have an experience level and understand the law and the criminal justice system. My goal over the last several years has been to get the department back to full operational levels with a total of 4 full-time certified officers, one of which being a sergeant. We just got back there in December with Shane graduating the academy. We're now back to 4 full-time certified officers. Officer Geisinger began her career with the Stuart Police Department in 2017 as a reserve officer. In 2018, she was hired full-time and graduated from the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy in October, and it was in November. She received advanced training in various topics to include sexual assault and many other investigating and whatnot. And I will mention she goes to is on her own time, her own dime. Just her being willing to go to those trainings is awesome. She's become a certified school resource officer, has implemented countless community programs, and assisted me in training and mentoring new officers. I would like, with the council's permission, to promote her, Officer Geisinger, to the sergeant position.
When we set up that pay scale, didn't we just agree to do that? Wasn't, I didn't know. I'm fine with it, you know, I agree with it. I just didn't know we had to come to the council to discuss it. Am I wrong, right? I'm not sure.
Sure, we approved the pay structure side of it.
Right.
At that point in time, nothing was said about the officer being promoted or anything like that.
I
And
thought
really,
you said you would come back when the time was right.
Yep.
Yeah, see, I mean,
And mainly this has nothing to do with Officer Geisinger's dedication or anything like that. It's just, I'm a firm believer that to be in a sergeant role, I don't want it to just be stripes on a sleeve for no reason. And so she needed to do some time here and get experience and do all those things, which she has done that and then some. So I think now is the time where it's appropriate to, promote her to that position.
So we need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Moved by Kirkpatrick,
I'll second it.
second by Renslow. How do you vote? Kirkpatrick,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes.
Renslow,
Yes,
Cobal,
yes.
I do have one thing to ask.
Her up here real quick. And,
Yeah.
yes.
and Kevin, you want to? She's been waiting a long time for this badge.
Take a picture.
I'll give it to Kevin, and Kevin, you want to pin that on?
Maybe.
Anytime, Kevin.
Yeah.
Don't mistake it.
Mildly concerned.
Congratulations.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Katie.
I have one
Oh.
other thing.
I just had something for him. I know that you and I have talked about it, but, can we get some more observation up at the school? Not just after school, but before school. There's right there at that elementary that you and I have talked about.
Sure.
And I think somebody else said something to me about the no parking signs behind the bar. There's been a lot of parking there,
Behind
at night.
Yeah.
Can we look at,
Thing is.
yeah, getting that
Sure.
taken care of?
Okay, I had cut out the Stuart paper about Daniel and his canine program, and then Katie with her criminal justice and her library, just so everybody knows, and dedicated above and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, public forum. Yes, sir.
I have nothing major, and it's not gonna require a vote. I guess the only benefit that's here is being less, I'll be remembered.
I had a couple of things to go over with Jim, but, Henderson, but he's,
Fire meeting.
I can take care of that, no problem. City spent $4.73 in postage. Tell me that I was invited to a storage pod on my driveway. And I would consider it to be a nuisance, but anyway, I tried to contact the office that sent me the letter, and the only thing that had on there was a computer thing. And I'm 81 years old and I've never owned a computer. So I had to go another route to find his phone number, and that I accomplished. And so, there's no phone number. I think that's a, so my wife called here at City Hall, tried to get that phone number. They refused to give her that phone number. I think it's a poor policy. So my avenue, I had a conversation with this office, and I asked who complained it's come from, and they said, well, a neighbor. I know my neighbors quite well, and they even come over and talk to me about it, and so I kind of determined as to who it was that complained through harassment to begin with. The unit that I rented ended up well. In fact, it even looked good. So I utilized it for a project that I had going. Came in there on the about the 3rd of November. And during the course of time up until about the 15th of February, I had 3 in-laws pass away. One was my wife's sister here in town, and a good friend over in Illinois. It took me up some time. Also, there were some weather delays. So this computer thing here it leads me to believe that people don't want to talk to people anymore. Well, I like talking to people. I'm not afraid to talk to people. And so the unit was a Cadillac. It was painted up nice. I think there's some very serious problems. It's got eyesores. A whole lot more than my storage unit did. And the gentleman I talked with over here in this office said that he goes around and makes sure that it's corrected. Well, he did. He stopped out in front of my house and saw the unit was. Let it go. If I was in violation or whatever, I apologize to the city and so on and so forth, but it was not a rusty vehicle there with the hood open and 4 flat tires or a boat or a camper or something like that. That leads me to believe that that's ownership of maybe a nuisance. And this was a rented unit and temporary there. So I'm just going to drop the subject from there. We go on to something else. A year or so ago, I inquired about shelters over the new post office boxes that we have out in our area. It's in the wide open there. Talked to the postmaster up here about it, and he said, boy, it really would be nice if we could have. I don't know whatever happened to that idea, but it went away down the toilet someplace. Another thing is that
About that same time, I made mention about having a severe weather siren out in my area over there. I don't know, I haven't talked to my neighbors about it, but my house, I can't hear it. So I think, you remember the lady that said there, I can't think who she is, but she said she's gonna check into it. It was some type of a proposal about putting it out towards where,
Kristen.
Oh, Kristen, that used to work for
out where the high school is, somewhere on through there. So, I guess, the subject was dropped. If you want to bring it up again, that'd be fine. I'd just like to know if we're gonna have a severe weather coming in.
Yeah, with more houses going out there, we need to do something.
I think regarding the storm siren, Ash, can you just talk to the fire chief?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can agree with you. Depending on the wind, you can't hear
You
it.
can't hear this.
And he lives, if you don't know this, he lives on the very most
Yeah.
farthest house on phase 2.
Yeah, before that buildup into there, we could pick it up, we could hear it. But now and it's even more so now, over closer to the street or over closer to the church, you can't hear it. You can't hear it at all.
Ash will talk to the fire chief and then they can look into that.
So I haven't talked to anybody on it.
No, I'm
Yeah,
letting
we-
you know that Ash is gonna talk to the,
New silence coming up, I just need to know who's it.
so they can address that storm siren issue for you.
All right, well, I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there, like, he was asking, if he gets a violation or whatever, does he talk to Mike up here?
Still come up, man. For some of
But he
the,
said he doesn't have a computer.
Right,
But
right.
there is different code enforcement from where you live and here. I didn't know that till a while back. They said campers, trailers and all that cannot be on the driveways.
So he lives in the new housing development,
new
which is
housing
governed
development.
by covenants.
So it's not different enforcement, different covenants.
Covenants.
I guess I was just trying to find him the
But yeah,
solution.
for a phone number, I
Yeah,
don't know why
if he
City
needs to
Hall
talk
would
to
give him a
somebody,
phone number.
I'm just trying to help you.
I don't know.
That really should be added to the law.
I didn't
Yeah.
take the call personally.
Yeah.
We'll look into it.
Yeah, at least put them on the letters,
It'd be
you
nice
know.
to have a
that's
number
easy.
on there.
Or maybe, can we have something else on our website? Maybe our code enforcement information?
yeah, that's
So-
what I'm gonna work with.
Okay.
How did you?
And then, yeah, you can have his email and his phone number on there.
Did he have
He
a
had,
computer?
yeah, he did.
So he didn't have a phone.
Yeah, so he didn't have to. He had that.
So then we'll put these
Yeah, putting it on the website's great, but it doesn't help people without computers.
Right, right, and that's what I was trying to
Piece of
help.
paper needs to
Yeah.
have a phone number, I agree with that.
That help you a little bit there, sir, and we just put some information on there. Hopefully you don't get another
Yeah, I was gonna say,
violation,
it's not
but.
gonna be in violation again, so.
I'll try to be a good boy.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming up.
Anything, John?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Real quick, and I'm speaking for myself, not for anybody else on the utility board. Because if I did, I'd probably get shot, it should, but, the entire time I was the agent for the city, it always puzzled me how the council and the board could spend that kind of money and really not know what they're buying. And I would suggest that at some point in time, we have a joint meeting to maybe take an hour, if that long, an hour at the most. Have Joe come in, answer questions, he can do a presentation into that policy and the value added that a lot of you don't know exist that are part of your insurance policy that can save the council and the board a lot of time and money if you use those, because they're there and we just need to find out what they are and to have you a little bit more informed on the $100,000 expense. And the utility board spend just about as much. So, yeah, talking about insurance is like watching paint dry. But I think it would, something I've always said about insurance, if you're gonna, you gotta think in the abstract. And if Joe can help us with that, to get through some of those, that fog that you see when you come to something like tonight and you gotta spend $100,000. Do I really know what I spent? You know, what I paid for? So just an idea, I'm gonna promote it to my board and sit back and watch him throw rocks at me, but I think it's something we could all benefit.
Well, John had mentioned a joint meeting how many months ago? We need to get this done.
Yeah.
Instead of 6 months down, just like that street project, you guys were uninformed.
Especially with the new housing development
Yeah, we
coming.
gotta keep working together.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, thanks, John.
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
So last month, when we had the discussion about the auto body shop
Yeah,
in town here, a motion was made that we give him 6 more months,
yeah.
but that he also provide the council updates
He
every
did.
2 weeks.
He did.
And that was supposed to be sent out to the council people.
Oh,
I have
the
not,
council too.
Oh,
Yes.
he didn't, but
yes,
Okay.
he did check in and reported to Matt from,
yeah, because
I would
we,
have Matt included in his.
yeah, we wanted to know
Sure,
where we were, so we just weren't in the dark like
Sure.
we were before, so.
Coming in
Yes.
Yes,
6
Oh,
months, right?
in
So-
his defense, he did.
okay, good, that's good.
And I would have Matt included in his report.
Not till after Mac got hold of it.
Well, you know, and the thing about it was, you know, really in that motion, there should have been some sort of a default clause that if he doesn't do that,
Yeah.
then that was off the board, that wasn't in there, but
But they're
it's good to
working
know
together.
that he's.
Yeah, he
he's
did.
doing
So
that.
Matt needs to pass the information.
Yeah, just pass it on.
I would have
Yeah,
Matt just
to the-
included in his report.
Perfect, thank you.
Anybody else have anything? You wanna go for 4 hours?
No, look,
Anybody else?
Nope.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.